everybody, it's Lee Scott here. Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee. I'm so excited that you are back with me for this second season of Leading. Today is going to be really exciting because number one, you're back in the new year in 2021. And the other big thing for you is that obviously all of us have experienced so much different stuff over the last year. But this year, we're going to really focus on a lot of different things here on Leading. And if you haven't done it, subscribe today to Leading with Lee on YouTube and other podcasting platforms. But today I have some very, very, very special guests. These are some friend of mine that we're going to start off this season. We're going to talk about being young, educated, and Black. And so today I'd like to welcome to the podcast and vlog my friends, soon to be Dr. Andreya Williams, my guy Marvin Carr, and my very, very good friend. I hope he decides to finally go get his doctorate if he stopped playing with us, James Parker. Welcome to the pod, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yes.
Well, first and foremost, I thank all of you for doing this. So I want to jump right in. So how have you guys been doing? So when this episode comes out, it'll be February, during Black History Month. And so we'll be a month into the year, but even at this current moment, how are you all doing with coming into the new year and having a big transition? I know some of us have come off of breaks with school and stuff like that, but how have you all been doing so far?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump it off here. So we just got off Christmas break, and we were on 3 weeks of break, and it was much needed because your boy was feeling like he was about to blow a gasket, just finishing up the semester. For those of you who don't know, my name is Marvin Carr. I'm a second-year medical student at Oklahoma State University, and so yeah, we had a vacation in South Carolina, and it was phenomenal. We got a cabin, rented our cabin, went down to Greenville, spent some time in Charleston, downtown Charleston. Got to go to the old slave market and Magnolia Plantation, and those experiences were incredible to say the least. But coming and transitioning into the new year, at least for me, we have our board exams coming up in the summer around late May, early June. So it'll be kind of a sprint, in terms of like studying, just really getting prepared for that. And then we'll transition into our clerkships or clinical rotations where we'll be more hands-on in the hospital doing third and fourth year. So right now I'm praying that the Lord gives me wisdom as I prepare for this board exam.
Great. Andreya? Oh, and my question was, how have you all been doing? So that was the big question, is how have you all been doing coming into this year, and what has this been looking like since we're coming off a break and starting out this year?
Yeah, so I too, like Marvin, took some time to get away. I went to Atlanta, and my family did Christmas there. And then my cousin and my sister, we have all of our initials are AMW, so we have done AMW trips. We've gone to Hawaii and Houston, and so we were in Charlotte because my cousin just moved. So we just had some like sister cousin, bonding time. Did a lot of self-care, had a spa day, went shopping, and so I think for me, I really tried to soak in all of this break because last semester I took 3 classes. I went to school full time, and I also worked full time, and I transitioned actually into a new job. I have started a new job, and so I just really wanted to like be on break. And I mean, like, I almost didn't take my laptop just because it reminds me of work and school. But I needed and I enjoyed every bit of, my break. For those of you that know me, it was just, it was beautiful being able to spend it with my mother and my family. And so I completely indulged in all that was winter break. And I think, things that I have to look forward to in this new year is the transition. I just mentioned I recently accepted a new position. And so to be quite transparent, I moved from an assistant director to a director, and seeing myself as director and reminding myself like, no, this is you, like you are leading, you are the person, and thinking about what that means to build out a team and cast vision. And so I'm just really excited to be in this place that is, a new position. I'm also continuing school. So I'll be, after this semester, done with my second year of this PhD course load. And I'm just really excited. I've had a great last semester, couple opportunities to publish. And so this semester, I'll be able to see that in print. So I'm looking forward to seeing that in 2021. But yeah, I think that I spent my break kind of recuperating, and I'm just really excited for all that God is revealing, even about myself. Being His word, kind of being that mirror of how I need to view myself to be able to walk into all that is forthcoming this year.
Awesome. James?
Got it. I don't even know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm not doing much now. Well, I am.
Ah!
No, I'm doing well. I think life has been crazy and busy because Young Life has kind of been on a break. That's my full-time job, and I'm the area director of North Tulsa. So mainly I've been focusing on fundraising and developing leaders and developing the area versus more so hanging out with the kids just because of COVID. In my job in particular, I work with students. So therefore I work with under-resourced communities. And so I haven't been doing anything with kids because most of them do not have health care, or they live in multi-generational homes or single parent homes. And so I've made the decision for North Tulsa Young Life to not meet with kids because I don't want to put that at risk out there. So me personally, I've been focusing on a lot of fundraising and a lot of entrepreneur opportunities that's been keeping me super busy, keeping me away from people, not because of COVID. I mean, of course, I've been staying away from people from COVID, but staying away from people that actually care about just because of busyness. And so I'm trying to find that balance. But I'm also a big believer that we have to choose to sacrifice them more than we choose to find balance at times, especially as Black people, because finding balance sometimes can keep you left behind. So it's kind of hard. It's like living that tension of how hard do I push and how much do I take time for myself? And so trying to figure that out. But outside of that, I've been good. Photography has been crazy. I've been doing a lot of entrepreneurial things with helping people start their business and brands. And so that's fun. So I have a lot of clients that this year, I think they would do really well when it comes to brand marketing. And so I'm excited just to see what people do and how people will succeed this year.
That's great. That's great. Well, all of you, thank you for just sharing a little bit. So let's jump right in. My major question that I want to start with is because all of you are young professionals, right? We have this interesting tension between being young and having a career that we're pursuing, things that we've worked really hard at, things that we've spent so much time engaging in as it relates to our jobs. But then we have this other reality that us being Black in America that is really complex at times. So my first question for you guys is, how are you balancing your level of expertise? Some of you are at the doctoral level. James, I'm waiting on you. But how are you guys, balancing your expertise and value in your current job and career pursuits?
I, I would say, um, when I think of balancing who I am and my race and what I'm trying to pursue it, I don't view it as a balance, right? I view it as it's me being authentically me, right? And so I bring me into those spaces. I bring myself into the classroom that's filled with less than 5 Black people. I bring Marvin and all of Marvin and my experiences that I have in America and my experiences that I have growing up in the inner city of Chicago to whatever hospital room, administration meeting, whatever it is that I do. And so I think that with the current events that have happened since June, right, in our nation, people want to hear what can they do, right? And so I feel as if now is a prime time to just be us, right? To be that voice, right? To shine our lights bright. Um, and that's coming from not from a place of arrogance, but it's coming from a place of humility. It comes from a place of, this is who we are, this is what we're lacking, and this is what we need as people. And so I think it's more so just just being you, just being original, and people respect that, right? Like real recognizes real all the time, and people want that. People, this country needs that at this moment, and our culture needs that at this moment. Like, I think too often we get Black professionals, that look like us, and they turn their backs from our communities, right? And they move out to the suburbs, right? And they don't come back. They practice out in different other areas, and they don't want to come back. And so it's just not forgetting where you came from, right? And so, like, staying humble, staying grounded, and really kind of being deeply rooted into your roots and what made you you.
Yeah, I think also, just like you're saying, just being authentically you. I think the big thing for me is the best thing that COVID did to me was kind of watered down my ability to code switch as fast. And so I used to be able to, when I was always in the room with full of different ethnic groups and different people, it was easy for me to switch from one person to the next person because I knew what I had to do. But now being at home most of the time, my code switching abilities has not been there. And so coming into rooms now in spaces where I feel the space, especially mainly white owned spaces, as truly who I am, it does more of a benefit for my career than anything else. Because also, even if they don't accept me, it's my time to move on and go somewhere else that actually fits me. And I think that's the hard thing that a lot of people is not understanding, is that code switching is cool until you become that code switch. Like until you become the person that you're actually not. So then you come home and you're not satisfied with what you see in the mirror in your career. And so for me, with my career and what I do, I tell people all the time. So I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if we could do advertisements, but this jacket is Patagonia, and Young Life bought it for me. And I call it the power of Patagonia a lot, because in a lot of spaces, it's white owned spaces, and I'll wear this jacket because it's like a level of acceptance for them. And then when I get a chance to speak, then they realize who I really am. But a lot of times I wear the Patagonia because it's like the power. I'm accepted in a certain place of power now, because I walk in, I look like all of them. And then they're like, wait, he looks a little different once I'm able to chance to speak. And so I think leveling the access and opportunity that I have with being Black within excellence and within career field is like where I'm at right now.
And I knew I was. I do that often. You would think after nearly a year of being in virtual spaces, we would know to unmute ourselves, but it still trips me up. But to answer that question, I I think for me, it is when you talk about balance, I to go back to Marvin's point, I believe I show up authentically me in every space. And because I show up authentically me, it requires a level of retreat. So I would usually describe myself to be this extroverted person. Most people think I am this extroverted person. And I am, in that I'm very, very social. I give a lot when I'm in spaces. I love to laugh. I love to, bring awareness, raise awareness around a topic when I'm in the room. I love doing that, love engaging with folks in that way. But because I do that, it requires me to go back, right? Kind of this retreat of being introverted. And so there's a term my sister used to kind of describe me. And she's like, I think you're an ambivert, like this duality of both, right? And so as I've matured and certainly come into the knowing of who I am, and continuing to walk in who I believe like I am called to be. I think for me, when you talk about that balance, when you ask about balance, because I show up authentically me in spaces, the balance for me is being able to unwind and come back. For me, it's home. I make my house is my sanctuary, right? Like, and so for me, it's journaling. It's watching a movie by myself. It may be going to a massage or going to the bookstore, but it's me spending time with me, because I have to be able to live and address, if I'm bringing this to someone's awareness, I have to be able to check where it fits within myself, right? And the reality that it's taxing. When I think about, we talked about kind of our sector, in higher education, I previously worked at a small private, liberal arts institution where there are less than 1% of Black students. And so when you are this Black administrator, you start to ask the questions that represent the population that you are a part of. And because you're constantly doing that work, that balance is insulating yourself with people that look like you, that people that you can, that you can be comforted by, people that can call out, your insecurity and your frustration and your fear. And so I think for me, that balance is, as Marvin said, fully being present in who I am, asking kind of that challenging question. My supervisor said something to me yesterday, like, not a lot of people will challenge what you say, and I don't want to be that person, because I think where there's sometimes this challenge, there's great dialogue and understanding. And in who I believe myself to be as an educator, that is my role, is to unearth something that was unknown. And how do I do that in the spaces that I'm in? And it's as simple as, my friends laugh at me because I'll use vocabulary words. They'll be like, well, who knew that? And it's like, oh, I'm practicing that word this week. You know what I mean? Like, and so my friends will start using that word, and it's the simplest thing, but it is I feel like it is my responsibility to walk in and expose or unearth or ask the question that leaves you thinking about something or using a word or whatever that thing is when I leave. But to do that requires me to also have that balance of time to myself and insulated with people that can recharge me.
Were you about to say something, James?
No, I was just saying I love that point as well, because I think of a lot of times when we walk into spaces, we are encouraged to be diversity of color, but not diversity of thought.
Yes.
And so I think being able to come into a space and be truly you, authentically you at all times, requires a level of them understanding there's a difference between color and thought. And so the fact that you're able to walk in a space and have diverse color and diverse thought makes everyone grow no matter what. Like you said, unearth the unknown. I think that is the most beautiful thing that we can always do as Black people, successful Black people, because it's a reason why they welcome us in that space. And now we have to take control of that space to be who we are authentically.
Great point. I do want to kind of hone in on something, because Marvin kind of led us into that conversation in an interesting way. So, and James, you said something about code switching, and it leads to my next question, because I think all of you as young Black professionals, as people that's going into different careers, how is that playing into the authenticity point? Because I agree with you guys about trying to be authentic at all times. I think that that's extremely important. How are you figuring out how to not not be yourself? Because I think it's one point that I think you all said was, we have to be ourselves more than ever now before, because we have the actual opportunity to be in those rooms. So how are you in those conversations with your boss, in those conversations with classmates, in your conversations with individuals who may not have our perspective? How are you articulating your Blackness in a very intelligent and helpful way, so that people will have a better understanding of the complexities of our community?
I think I'm gonna just take a stab, because the question, I think we went from code switching to can you, I'm sorry, let me just name, can you ask the question again for us? Like, I'm like, well, what is it that you're asking?
well, really, to be honest, take both. I would say attack the reality of code switching and how that relates to being authentic in your Blackness. Because I think that there's the unconscious, we do both, but how are you continuously being authentically Black and fighting that trope of code switching? Like, how is that working now for you, especially at this particular point in time? That's what I'm asking.
Okay. I think I personally, I don't like using the term code switching personally. Like, I'm one to believe that to be me is to not require code switching. Now, what I also believe to be true is that, just like everybody else, you don't get all me the first time of knowing me, right? Like that, like there's a level of rapport that is built for me to be able to have conversation, because I think trust is built along the way for you to be able to trust what it is that I'm saying. I think, there are some, I'm also just a very open person. And so I'm thinking about this example of, being in a class, and we were doing some qualitative research, and, we had to do an observation, and then we had to do an interview and all that kind of stuff. And so one of the themes that I felt like was kind of reoccurring was like, for our white folks were saying, like, for our inner city students, and they're so underrepresented and under resourced and underprivileged, and I had to name, just name it, like, not every Black student is underserved. You know what I'm saying? Like, not every Black student comes from one family, one parent, one income household. And I needed to name it, not to try to, embarrass anyone, but it's like this experience that we're doing is, if I'm in the room and not addressing what people are calling fact, and it's not, being authentically me, Black or not, is calling out, that's not true, right? Like that is for me. And I don't necessarily, like, I don't know, I said I don't ascribe to code switching, but I feel like I'm going to come in and kind of get a sense of, like, what is the room, read the people, you know what I'm saying? Read, is it appropriate to, and not, can or more, could I, yes, but should I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think could and should also kind of exist for me when I'm in spaces. But I think that over time, especially when I'm, if I'm thinking about my supervisor, we've grown to that place where, like, he now recognizes, like, there's a gap there, and I think it's because of the conversations that I've been able to point out along the way. And I don't know that it's required me to code switch. I think it requires me to, it's required me to read the room and know, like, this isn't that time to say that. Maybe at the next juncture or the next, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe it's that, but I feel like I'm coming into the space where I'm me, but what comes into question is could and should, or when and if, you know what I'm saying, of appropriate and timing.
I think that's a great response. I think you kind of answered the next question I was going to ask you all about being kind of in a lot of ways, in unique ways. And it's still interesting that this is the narrative, that a lot of us are being the Black voice in spaces, because some people really don't have a context or even a connection to our communities. And the only connection that they really have is probably television, or something they read, or, this is kind of off topic, but I remember I remember when I used to work for Walmart, had a conversation with a gentleman specifically about HBCUs. And I don't know. I don't know if any of it. James, you went to Langston, didn't you?
No, I wish. I went to a PWI.
Okay, so and we're going to talk about that. But I think so. All of us have gone to PWIs. If we didn't go to all HBCUs, we went to PWIs at some point in our educational career. But I was having this conversation with him, and he actually said to me that he was asking me what was the point of HBCUs, because he didn't really understand why HBCUs existed. And a part of me was a little bit appalled, but a part of me recognized that in a lot of cases, our white counterparts don't actually understand the history behind education and university education and different things like that. And I realized that in that moment, I had to educate him on, wait, the reason why HBCUs even exist is because Black folks couldn't even go to statewide institutions at some point in history. And they are still overwhelmingly educating African Americans today. Today, most African Americans, if they've gotten an education, it's because of HBCUs. And so, having those interesting conversations about these things is really, really powerful. And I think you made a valid point, Drea, in how do we, in some of those moments, navigate that and then say, hey, no, this is something that I need to clarify for you, because I don't think you understand the impact or the seriousness of what you're saying. So,
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you wanted to say something, Drea.
No, I was just agreeing, like, yes.
Okay. So I want to move on a little bit, because because I want to make sure ask you guys as many questions as possible. So let's kind of get into you all's career. So what are some of the steps that you are taking? Dre, you're talking about getting a new position. Marvin, you're about to go into the last year or so of getting your MD. He's not getting a PhD, getting an MD. Yeah, doctor, as we as we'd say. And James, you're talking about fundraising. How are you pursuing some advancement in your careers? I think all of us are kind of taking new steps this year, career-wise. But how are you all approaching your jobs and trying to really pursue growth and going forward in your career?
I started with the last question, so go ahead, James.
Yeah, I think for me, it's hard to look at because my job is definitely one of the job where it's like you have to wait for the next person to kind of move out of the space for you to move into the space. And so right now, I know this is going to be public, but right now, I have to decide for my career, is this somewhere I want to be long-term in this position, or do I want to move to a different sector so therefore I can have the opportunity to grow? I think for me, though, especially for Black successful people in career fields, sometimes we might have to show the need and show the gap so we can create our own position within that company. And so I think for me right now, it's either I start bringing awareness to more gaps so I can make my own career field in my company, or it's time for me to look at a different direction as well.
I like that. So I'm kind of going to touch on the question you asked presently and the previous question in terms of like being ourselves and code switching. Right? So something that was occurred at our institution over the summer. When George Floyd, Ahmaud, and Breonna, when all of those incidents happened, like it really took a toll on me. Took a toll on me mentally, physically, emotionally, and it took a toll in terms of relationships or lack of relationships that I kind of had with people at my school, and thought that I had, so to speak. And so, we talk about using how do we be ourselves in those spaces, right? And so something that I did was I wrote a letter to my school, essentially saying, I want you all to come out and address these problems. I want you all to come out and support your students, reach out to your students, reach out to your Black faculty. I want you to look at curriculum changes, right? Have some images of Black skin, Black and brown skin, right? For that matter, not just pale white skin. And so long story short, one of the deans got a hold of this letter, and I had, alumni sign it from all around Tulsa area, literally from all around the world, pretty much. Students had signed it. And one of the deans of our school reached out, got a hold of it. We sat down, had a meeting, a couple of my other classmates and colleagues, and we approached them and said, like, hey, here's what our school is right now. Here is the lack of support that you are providing for your Black and brown students. Here's where we think we can go. And so essentially from those conversations led to us creating a Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And so now we have a Dean of Office Diversity, DEI, at our institution. We're a completely red state here in Oklahoma. So something like that is ginormous, right? And so like now you see all these talks about implicit bias happening, all these lunch and learns about, come learn about not only, Black underrepresented students, but also LGBTQ plus, right? And so learning the commonalities of using gender pronouns, all of this stuff, right? And so it's like shed a light on so many open doors, right? And it's kind of like you were saying, James, it's like it created a position for someone else because they didn't see it. And so that's the importance of us being authentically ourselves in those spaces, and not quote unquote code switching like we keep referring to. And so I think for me, like in terms of my career moving forward and what I'm trying to aspire to become, a lot of my thought process is I don't want to deal with having these conversations each and every time for white institutions, right? And so like this may not happen, the next 5 years, 10 years, maybe even 20 years, but a lot of what I think about is how can we do we have these institutions for our more, because every Black student can go to an HBCU, right? Let's just point blank fact, period, right? And so like we need more Black schools, we need more Black medical schools, we need more Black residency programs, we need more Black engineering programs, like we need more Black everything, Black banks. And so like a lot of my thought process when it comes to what we do as young Black professionals stems around being B1, right? Putting our Black first, right? And so that's like, for me, like I've really been on the verge of like, how can I create a Black medical school? How can I create a surgery center, right? And put it in a neighborhood that look like specifically like people like me. And so like, and using all of the resources that I have currently right now that are accessible to me, where they're only a lunch away, and just gaining that knowledge and wisdom and storing that in my back pocket. So when the time comes, you know, we can really make some moves to make that happen, because racism isn't going anywhere, and racism is just a face for class, right? And so like, it's not about race. They use race, but behind that door is economic status. And so those are the building blocks that we need to take. And so I hope I answered that question.
Can I touch on something you said really quick, Marvin, that I think is key? One thing that I think is key that I try to work on with all my leaders and all my donors I develop is the idea of that access and opportunity. A lot of times in Black America, we get an option of one of the other, not both. We get either access or we get opportunity. So a lot of times with my students, they know their opportunities to go to college, but they have no way of knowing the access to get there. Or I know a lot of times that they get offered all these scholarships and everything, but they don't know their opportunities. And so I think it's key in what you're doing, because it gives both access and opportunity. Because I know a lot of people are like, well, they can just, it's a McDonald's around the corner. Yeah, but how are they going to get to that McDonald's? So the opportunity is there for them to eat, but where's the access to get to that McDonald's? And why are we giving them McDonald's? But I know that was a poor like place to eat at, but is it the thought of we have to give access and opportunity and not one or the other? Like we have to do a better job of teaching both, because if we keep removing one, then there's no point of it. It's no point for you to give me opportunity if you never gave access to the opportunity, because that's the difference between equity and equality, right? Like, yes, we can all vote, but the access to voting is totally different if we're being honest. Yes, I can get a PhD, but my access to a PhD is totally different, because the spaces I have to walk into, the applications I have to fill out, the money I have to spend to get into the application or to get into the degree program changes. And so I think the big thing that we have to work on, like you said, is creating access and opportunity, not just one or the other, because someone will always be left out of the equation if we only offer one or the other. So thank you for saying that, because yeah, I'm all on board. If you create a Black school, Black whatever, bro, I'm in.
I was literally about to say that. I was like, you got 3 board members right here. You know, I may not have much as clout as James and Drea, but I could definitely, be, I'll hand out papers. What were you about to say?
Because of your platform.
So. Right. But what were you about to say, Drea?
Oh, nothing.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. But anyways, but yes, Marvin, I think that thought process is powerful. And you're right, James. It is, how do we get people beyond thinking about, okay, we just open the door for you and then you need to figure everything out. I'm gonna use this analogy because it was very interesting to me when you all know that I go to ORU. I'm getting my master's at ORU. And years ago, I did missions. And one of the things that we talked about in missions that I think applies to this particular situation is we always would talk about, when it comes down to quote unquote salvation, everybody be trying to get people to get them saved. We trying to get to the end point. But one thing we talked about in missions was you may just be the step in that process for somebody to get to salvation, right? And I think one of the biggest things that people, if we take that same scenario when we come down to education or giving Black and brown folks opportunities, there has to be a recognition among our white counterparts, among some of our people, that we could be a step in a kid's process to get to that opportunity, to get to that degree, to get to that career, to get to that job opportunity, because we have to recognize the responsibility. And it goes back to something you said earlier, Marvin, is that we have to understand and be reminded of the investment that we have to make back into our communities and doing different things. And I think generationally, there's a uptick, I think, in the conversation of even on a Black consciousness about how do we become successful so it can become the platform to which everybody else is being successful. Even right now, as I'm talking to you guys, there have been conversations I've been having, even with leading. How can it not just be me talking about leadership all the time? Like, what is the plan in the upcoming year or so to create opportunities for other people that I know personally so that they can have a voice, so that they can be people that are impactful? How do I equip somebody to where literally you see Leading with Lee and then you never see me? You just know that this is the brand, but there's so many other voices and people who are on here doing things that are impacting and changing the culture. We're talking about some real stuff, and I hope that we get an opportunity to keep talking about this because I think that this is extremely important. But I'm going to move on with the more questions because I don't want to prolong the time, and I know all of you are super important people, so you all got in high demand. So I want to ask this next question. So um, how are some of the organizations, clubs, associations that you have played a role into your career and also the relationships? Because I think one thing that I realize now, I think the last few jobs that I've gotten have been primarily because I had a relationship with somebody at the company. So how has those things played into that, and how have you leveraged your connections? Drea, you the only Soro on here. So how have you leveraged that to actually advance in your career?
Um, this is not the right thing to say, but I did not get um this job or any of the jobs that I've had because of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm forever grateful for being in the organization, but it wasn't a direct, connect, so to speak. Um, you know, what I think so I'm going to say this. I did a program called Leadership Tulsa, and Leadership Tulsa is a very, very prominent, organization here in Tulsa, and it gathers a cohort of leaders from all over the city in both the nonprofit and for-profit sector. And I would say that I was in a position. So when I got to TU, been here for a while, and I found a mentor. Now, what I believe, this person, and this person is not Greek. I believe, though, it is advantageous for any person, especially young, professionals, to find someone, identify, and latch on. How can I how can I be mentored by you? And so for me, it was, working with her, talking with her, not just about, hey, I want to do Leadership Tulsa, but everything in between. But because she knew who I was, what I had going, she wanted to be a part of kind of helping shape me. She referred me to someone. That person was on the board of Leadership Tulsa. They funded me to do the program. And so it is the power of networking in that sense, that I believe is like advantageous. But I will say that for me, it is, we always say, like, it's not important what you know, but who you know. And I believe, I'll take that one step further, because someone said it to me, it is also important for them to know you. Like, it's not about who you know, but do they know you? You know what I'm saying? Because that speaks to this genuine relationship that we have, wherein now you can refer me because you know me. You can refer me because I'm representing you off of that recommendation, right? And so it's, for me, it's always been, well, I shouldn't say it's always been, that's not true. I'm always like, who can I know? Like, who do I need to, running crazy trying to network and make all these connections. But I think as I've gotten older, I'd rather quality of 3 solid people, you know what I'm saying, than quantity of 30, because I want the 3 to be able to speak broadly, richly, deeply, to be able to speak to my character and to be able to speak to the development and the growth that they've seen in me. So when they make the recommendation, that recommendation be genuine and it be felt and it be authentic, because they're not making something up about what that person has heard about me or whatever. But I believe, and I said this before, that every young professional, whatever, career that you are in, like, find you, insulate yourself with people that are like you or are where you are going or where you aspire to be. Like, I think the strength of building those relationships make anyone's career more deeply colored by their referrals, their recommendations, organizations that you then become a part of. um, I don't know if I answered the question fully, but I at least wanted to acknowledge, like, it was for me more mentorship, and it still is. The job that I have, I wasn't looking for it. My friend called me and asked me, did I want to do it, and to name my salary. So again, it is connections, and it is people, and it is organizations. And so I say that to say, don't just join Delta Sigma Theta because you want to be a part of the group. Don't, you know what I mean? Like, do it because you want to. I'm gonna keep pushing Delta Sigma Theta, because if you're gonna join the sorority, that's the only one. That's the only one you should consider, sis. But I say that to say, like, don't just join it because you want to be a part of the plug. You know what I'm saying? Like, join it because you want to be a part of the work, and it will invest back into you, whatever organization that is, and the people that make it.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say, of course, I'm not in a fraternity or anything. I would say I would give one, hard work for sure, but then also resources was my big one. So I understand this is an unfair advantage that a lot of people don't have that look like us, but I was able, through my undergrad and master's, I was able to do plenty of internships with different PR firms that gave me so many opportunities to have access to resources and references that a lot of people don't get. And the reason why I say everyone doesn't get the opportunity is because I had to do unpaid internships, and luckily my family was able to support me for multiple summers for me to do internships. And so I think a lot of things that I do now is because I have references that actually do know me. Like, I think Drea said it right, is that yes, it's about who you know, but who knows you? And what do they know about you? Because it's one thing to be known, but what do they know about you? What are they saying about you? Are they just gonna be able to say, yes, that's James Parker. I think he worked back in this department. No. I want them to say, oh, that's James Parker. Yeah, actually, he was always on time. He actually like provided something. He added depth to my company. And so I think it's big when it comes to how I'm leveraging all those things, is that I have reference points from internships and externships that I did throughout my college career that I still have relationships with. Because also I think leading up and leading down is huge when it comes to this world, right? So like, yes, they know me, but also I check in with them. I still will shoot them a text once a month. Hey, how are you doing? Hey, can we grab lunch? They might say no every single time, but they know that James has not left their radar. So they still speak highly of me in any space that they walk into. But I think it is like, it's not always what you know, it's really who you know, because who you know can sometimes teach you more than what you'll ever know. And so that's what I've learned so much, is that some of the people that I do know, they've taught me more than my degree ever would have taught me, because they have real world experience that they can actually invite me into circles, into tables, that I have a voice that's more powerful than most people at the table because of who invited me. And so I think that's my big thing, is like Drea said, is like who you know and who knows you. Like, that's important. But the unfair advantage is sometimes you don't get the chance to know new people, and they don't get a chance to know you because you don't get the opportunity to be invited into those spaces because you can't, because you didn't get the degree, you didn't do this. And so that's where I think we're doing well, is that we're making it to these spots, and now we're bringing people under us that think, and then now we're reference points for them. And so I just think that's huge, is us knowing our authentic self, but then also giving power to the powerless, but then also using our voice to uplift other people, to bring them up the chain. Because I don't like using pipeline, because we use pipeline way too much, and pipeline systems is not meant for Black people. So I say chains, bring us up to chains, even though I don't like chains either, but that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah.
Marvin?
I mean, y'all really hit the nail on the head with that one. Dre, I love that, of making sure that they know you as well. I was literally talking to some fifth graders yesterday, and they're doing a STEM project, right? And so I was telling them about my experience of getting into medical school. And so like, for me, it wasn't like a 4-year undergrad and then right to medical school. Like, I had to do some extra work, get some extra classes while working 40, 60 hours a week. But long story short, like I was working as a surgical assistant, one of the OBGYNs, she knew the current dean of my school. She says, hey, I know this guy, Marvin, excellent young man, hard worker, diligent, humble, all, you know, X, Y, and Z. She knew me authentically, right? And she was able to put in a great bid for me, for someone who in the medical application process applied to probably 18 to 20 medical schools, but only got accepted into one, which was the one she vouched for me for. And so, you know, like, again, like a lot of this stuff is not what you know, it's more so who you know, right? And how do they know you? So y'all are, I agree wholeheartedly with it.
Yeah, all of your answers were great. I think you answered the question better than you thought you answered the question. So I think all of your answers was fantastic. It's about who you know and how authentic those relationships are for you. So let's just move a little bit forward. I have maybe two more questions for you guys, but you all kind of touched on it a little bit throughout this conversation. But I want to ask you more specifically, what are some ways that you are right now paying it forward? Because I think that that is key to what we do and how we're going to create legacy for ourselves. How are you right now paying it forward in whatever aspect of your career or just life, really? Drea, since you always have the hitter answers, I'm gonna ask you to go first.
No, no, I was like, I don't want to go first. I was thinking like, I want to kind of rotate, like who takes it on. I'm like, let me fall back. You don't want to be the person that talk all the time. You know, how am I paying it forward? I think in my career, for me, paying it forward is trying to advance, trying to elevate my voice and elevate it to an audience that can hear it and do something about it, right? I think, you know, in life, paying it forward, it's as simple as, so crazy faith testimony, I was able to save 10,000 last year. And, you know, because I was able to do so, I have, or in being able to do so, it's freed up, not freed up money, but I, you know, in paying off my credit card debt and all of that, it's just allowed me to have resources kind of available. And so, you know, I want to be able to say like, I want to create this scholarship, whatever. I haven't done that. But what I have been able to do is like, hey, like, you don't have a job, let's figure out how to rewrite your resume. You know, so here's this example. Over the holiday, Marvin's wife is the assistant principal at a school here in Tulsa. And paying it forward for me is like, okay, we've already helped with Sis's resume, but I'm connected to people that have needs. And so I text India, who is also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. But I texted like, hey girl. And I was like, you know, I had two people actually that I knew needed jobs. And so, you know, I think for me, paying it forward is being able to help financially, but also being able to help within my area of influence in the circle that I know of people. And if it's, you know, putting a resume in the hands of someone that has job openings, that's how I feel like I pay it forward. You know, in my career right now, you know, or I guess in my like PhD, right? I'm currently authoring two pieces, and they really are to just continue to speak to a specific issue that I'm seeing in the literature that's not really addressed. So briefly, you know, we use international students kind of broadly, but because if you use critical race theory kind of as this lens, you begin to unearth that not every international student is the same. Their experiences are not the same. International students of color have very different experiences than international students that are from European countries. So when you think about like, what resources are we trying to gain or give to international students, I'm trying to unearth that not every international student is homogenous. Like we can't use such narrow and such broad strokes to color every, you know, international student. So I think, you know, paying it forward for me it's advocating for the work that I'm doing and the research that I'm seeing. It's using the resources within my network to plug someone into a job, and it's being financially free to be able to give and not miss no sleep at night. So those three things I would say for me is how I'm paying it forward.
Marvin?
Yeah, I love that, Drea. Currently, I have the privilege to serve as president of our school's chapter of SNMA, also known as the Student National Medical Association. What it is it's the oldest association catered to the cares and concerns of students of underrepresented students specifically, and students of color. And so essentially our mission is to support underrepresented students, increase the number of culturally competent physicians, and also just to be a voice, right? And so we have put on, numerous events for undergraduate students, pre-med students that may have an interest in medicine. And so we've held virtual conferences. And this past fall, we had a virtual conference, inviting over 100 pre-med students and even non-pre-med students, right? Just to showing them how to do what's an elevator pitch, practice a 60-second elevator pitch, because there's going to be a time and moment. We keep talking about, who we know, right? There's going to be a time and moment where you have to come and network with somebody and show yourself and pitch yourself, right? And so how do you do that within 60 seconds or less? And so give them tools on what it looks like to be a student physician. What does it look like to go into a patient's room, listen to their heart sounds, listen to their lung sounds, and just expose them to things that they don't necessarily get exposed to. And so we've done a walkathon fundraiser, virtual walkathon fundraiser, where we've raised over $5,600 for our chapter to be able to send members to the national convention in the spring, and just to have money in the chapter for the next class that are coming behind us. So those are kind of some of the things that I'm doing right now, but looking forward to doing more in the future.
James?
Yeah, so I think right now, a big thing that I'm pushing right now is helping people that want to be entrepreneurs come with LLCs and understanding how to be an LLC, how to do brand marketing, how to do social media management. And so that's my big focus right now. But then for student base wise, I just created a program called Equity North, which is through TTCU, actually, Dr. Lee. And it'll be through the Peoria campus, and pretty much what Equity North had a meeting with the president, everything. It's really cool. So Equity North, pretty much it helps with financial literacy for high school students. And so pretty much we go into the schools, well, TTCU and TCC students go into the schools, teach financial literacy over the course of the year. And then it'll pretty much what it'll do is we'll create a bank account for you at the school versus having you come to the bank to create a bank account. And then also Equity North will wipe away all initial fees. And then if you stay through the whole year, we'll match whatever you put into your savings account. And so by the end of the year, if you're a junior or senior, you get into this program, you don't pay for anything to get a bank account. You don't have to go to the bank to get a bank account. And then you go through the financial literacy course and we match. And then the second thing I think I'm doing right now is I have a group of friends that it's called Blequity, right? So like equity, but with Black and brown people, it's for Black and brown college students. And so pretty much we pay for a salary for you for the summer so you can do an unpaid internship to get access to that opportunity. And so pretty much you don't have to worry about, essentially it benefits the firm or wherever you want to work because they get a free intern essentially because Blequity will pay for that student to be there. So you have an extra intern at your job, but we'll pay for you to get your summer program paid for so you don't have to worry about finances, so you don't have to work at a Family Dollar to pay for your degree. That summer will pay you a salary to do an unpaid internship or externship.
Oh, that's incredible. I think all of you are doing some amazing things. So thank you all for your time. Okay. But my last question, and you're not going first, Drea. My last question I'm going to ask you guys is just kind of more of a fun question for me to ask. But what song would you describe, what song would you use to describe yourself and why? And Marvin, Dr. Carr, you'll go first. Oh, see, I put you on the spot, didn't I?
That's tough. It's tough. Um, Man, if I say something, I feel like it's just going to be a BS answer. Mm. Somebody else gonna have to go.
Go ahead,
James.
James.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say he's always ready.
Okay, so the song I would have, it's a song that I use actually. We have this thing called Real Life with my job. We do over summer camps, pretty much where you have to tell your testimony. But the song would be "One Man Can Change the World" by Big Sean, because he talks about how he doesn't want to be lonely at the top, but he always feels like he's working and grinding on the ground to make it. And so he says, I looked it up because I was like, I have to be ready. Right when you asked us at the beginning, I said, let me find this song so I don't get called out. It says, success is on the way. I feel it in the distance. Used to look up this to the stars and be like, ain't too much that's different. I be shining, they be shining. Get your one shot. Don't you miss it. What you know about waking up every day like you're on a mission. And I feel like that song has always been a theme that I live by, is that I think you have to get up and you have to fight, even when no one's fighting with you, but make sure you're always communicating through the process, because you don't want to be there. You don't want to get to the top and never bring anybody up there with you. And so, yeah, one man can change the world, Big Sean.
Now I'm over here looking up like, okay, what's wrong with Describe Me? Man, I should have done this so long ago.
It's such a good question. I know. I probably should have forewarned y'all, but hey.
I think in different seasons, different songs might apply. Right now, I would say the song is "Thank You Next" by Ariana Grande. I think that every person, every job, every whatever comes to you, and there's always something that you can learn from it. I think James used, I can't remember who said this, but it was something to the effect of everything that you go through, what am I learning from it that begins to be a life lesson to me? How do I no longer place myself in this victim position, right? In this victim mentality. And I think I'm using these things as learning moments. And so, from, a relationship that I got out of last year, to a job that I got out of last year. Thank you for what it was, but next, right? And I just believe that that probably describes like me in the season right now. Like, I'm grateful for all that it was. I'm grateful for the learning lessons. I'm grateful for what it brought me, but it didn't work for me, or in context of relationship, didn't work. It wasn't working for us, right? Or for my job, it wasn't working for me. And so thanks, but next. That would probably be me right now in this season.
Okay, Marvin, you done had 3 minutes. So now.
It's in two songs, Marvin.
Right.
Yeah, I got you. So I think it'll probably be "Purpose Over Pleasure" by Jonathan Traylor. I'm a huge component of knowing who you are and knowing what your purpose is, because when we know who we are, we know what our purpose is, we're able to do more, right? We're able to give more. We're able to bless others more. And so I guess like growing up for me, it was a lot of my father kind of instilled in me, like you do what has to be done when it ought to be done, whether you like it or not, right? And purpose is like that. Purpose is saying no to your flesh, saying no to going out and staying up until 11 o'clock at night when you got the 4 a.m. alarm that's going to go off in the morning. And so, I take that song with me a lot in whatever season that I'm in.
Well, like I said, thank you all. I mean, I really enjoy this conversation with you guys. I really have been inspired and encouraged by that. And people that will listen and watch, I hope that they are inspired and impacted by you all's stories and the perspectives that you all brought into this conversation. So thank you guys. I love y'all. And until next time. Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee. If you have not done it yet, subscribe today on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. To get more information about me and what I'm doing, email me at scottconsultations@gmail.com or follow me on social media on Twitter and especially Instagram at Lee A. Scott II or Lee A. Scott II. Thank you for watching this week's episode. I really appreciate it. Much love, and let's get started.